Morris, congratulations on being inducted into the California Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Thank you so much, Coach Abraham.
Yeah, I have a few questions I'd like to ask you about your career.
Okay.
First of all, what individual or individuals have had the greatest influence on your wrestling career?
I'm glad you said individuals because there certainly is more than one. But first has to be my high school wrestling coach, Gary Kreisenbeck. I wrestled at Sacramento High School in Sacramento. It's the urban, big urban school with not a big wrestling history. And he took a bunch of ragtag kids who'd never wrestled before in their lives. My first year, I was a sophomore, and I was 1 win and 15 losses. And he just stuck with us. So he sent us all to camp. He started a summer school at the high school so that we could all get credits for coming to practice during the summer. So he kept us out of trouble and got us in there wrestling. And it was open to all the kids in all the different schools in the Sacramento district. And we had like 35 kids from different schools working out. So I went from 1 and 15 that first year to 36 and I think 5 the next year. And made the nationals in freestyle and Greco. And coach he just kept me going in the right direction all the time. He's like, I actually named my son after him. Oh. I love him. He's like a father to me in some ways. And then also, my first college coach was Buck Dieterich, and Buck was a real influence on me too. In a lot of different ways. He really had a head for freestyle, and had a real head for the international game and stuff. And so that got me started off on the whole international trail. So I've always been really grateful to him for that. And he was big enough to pound me around a little bit too in practice. And then I guess beyond that, actually, it's more of someone, I'm not sure if someone you even know, but his name was Mark Loomis. He was a California state champion back in, I guess, 77 or so. And he used to come work out with us. He was a really good, he was a national judo champion. And
From the Sacramento area. Right?
Yeah, he went to Bella Vista with coach Charlie Lee. And he just changed my style of wrestling. I wanted to wrestle like him because he was a guy who threw all the time and wanted to get big points. And so that sort of changed my thinking about, not trying to score off doubles and singles and trying to score off throws. And, that's pretty much how I wrestled throughout my career. So I would say those three people had the biggest influence.
Morris, who is or was your idol?
In wrestling growing up, beyond my coaches and things, probably Jimmy Jackson. Oh. There was a picture of him in our wrestling room, and when I was a sophomore, and I had never seen an African American wrestler before, and he was a 350-pound heavyweight for Oklahoma State, and so I watched him the first time I ever saw a college match. It was on Wide World of Sports, and they showed him against John Sefter from Princeton in the finals. I just remember thinking, like, this guy is so amazing. And I wound up wrestling him my first time going to the senior nationals for third and fourth in the third and fourth place match, and I beat him. I was just so scared. I thought he was going to kill me afterwards because he was still outweighing me by about 100 pounds. But I really idolized him. Though. He's Olympian and 3-time college champion. So
interesting. How did you get started in wrestling?
It was kind of interesting too. I was a baseball player, and unlike now, I was a little bit chubby. I was a little heavy-set kid playing baseball in ninth grade, and the coach said, if you want to, be better at baseball, you need to get in better shape over the winter. So he said, why don't you find a sport when you get to Sac High next year that can keep you in shape? I said, what sport would that be? And he said, well, either cross country, which I said, no way, or wrestling. He said it's a good sport too. So I went out for the team, and again I got killed, but it was still, I fell in love with it and never played baseball again.
Morris, what do you attribute your success in wrestling to?
A couple things. I think one was wrestling all year long. Coach Kreisenbeck really encouraged us to not just stop at the end of the high school season. And again, if like a guy like me who was a first-year wrestler, I only had 16 matches my first year, but then I wrestled freestyle and with Bawa, and I got my first medal at Andy Foley's tournament over at Hogan. I got a little third-place medal that was this big, but I was so happy with that. There was 4 guys in the weight class. I beat 1 guy, and I got a third-place medal, and that kept me motivated for like the rest of the freestyle season. And so I think that was probably the best thing, was just wrestling all year long and wrestling every single style. And even after I became like on the Olympic ladder and that kind of thing, I still wrestled both Greco and freestyle. Probably my most successful year, I took second in the nationals in Greco and third in freestyle the same year. And I think just wrestling both styles is just wrestling is wrestling. And Dave Schultz sort of told me that when we were on the Tbilisi team, just wrestle as much as you can, and don't worry about cutting weight. So I went up to heavyweight instead of staying at 220s, and I think that helped too.
As a wrestler, is there one match that really stands out in your mind?
Well, actually, that match I was telling you about with Jimmy Jackson stood out a lot, just because, again, it was somebody who I idolized. It was my first time wrestling at the senior nationals, and I thought I was going to get killed. So I was just thinking, I was all mad. I was mad that I went heavyweight. I thought I could have cut 5 pounds and went 220s, and I went heavyweight, and I had Jimmy Jackson to wrestle with, but I beat him though, and I realized sort of that I had decent technique, and I need to just use that and not be afraid of who the person's name was and that sort of thing. And so I think probably that. Either that or I made the junior world team in '81, and I got to the consolation finals there too, and I beat the Hungarian for third, and I remember just being really happy. And
Well,
you were there for
may
that.
have already answered this, but is there one outstanding situation or memory that you have involving wrestling?
Oh, I have tons. Just
Would it be that Jimmy Jackson?
either that or the junior world one, because I mean, that was my first time wrestling in an international, a world championship, and I went in there being one of the less experienced guys internationally on the junior world team, and myself and Mark Fuller were the only guys who medaled, and so I felt like I belonged at that point. I felt like I'd beaten some good guys to get on the team, and then I beat Dennis Kozlowski, and I beat a couple other guys who were top-notch wrestlers to make the team. So that stood out.
If you were to start all over again, what would you do differently? As, if anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. My first 2 years of wrestling in college, I cut down from. I was a 190 pounder in high school. I wrestled heavyweight my junior year, and I wrestled 190 my sophomore and senior year. And when I went to college, my coach wanted me to cut down to 175, thinking that because I was sort of a soft guy, I'm not real muscular, that kind of thing. So he thought I'd do better and be faster if I was at 175, sort of not really knowing my strengths or my weaknesses. And I spent so much time cutting weight, I didn't do very well at all those first 2 years. And if I did it over again, I think I would have went 90s and heavyweight all through college and not cut weight. So with my son, he wrestles. I don't allow him to cut weight at all. He wrestles whatever he's weighing, and he does great. He doesn't worry about cutting weight. So that's probably what I would change.
Morris, what would you like people to remember about you?
I'd like them to remember me as a person who liked to wrestle all styles, and who who wasn't afraid to go in there against anybody, no matter who the person was. I wrestled Alexander Carolyn 3 times. I wrestled pretty much everybody in my weight class. In the 12 years I was wrestling, and I hope people remember that I wasn't afraid of going either style. That I did sambo, and and also that I got a lot of enjoyment out of the sport. It's just probably what's made me the happiest, other than my children and my wife. It's what's made me the happiest in my life. So I hope they see that how much happiness is involved with it, or was involved with it.
Great. How has wrestling contributed to your life?
Again, it's given me a lot of confidence. When I was working on my PhD, I felt like even though it was just a real strain and a drain, and I had other things to do, you can still get it done. You just need to, kind of put your head down and pin your ears back and go forward. Even if things feel like they're impossible, for the most part, you show up, you stand on the mat, or you stand on whatever venue you're dealing with, and you go at it. You'll lose sometimes, but for the most times, I think you're gonna have success. But you got to show up, you got to prepare, and I think those are the things that I learned from you and from my other coaches. And so, preparation and showing up. So,
Morris, thank you, and I want to also congratulate you again for being inducted into California Wrestling Hall of Fame.
thank you, Coach Abraham. It's a real honor. Appreciate it.